Oh, this is so satisfying. Just look at it. Look at it! All that dirt and grime just washing away with a perfect squeegee-like rhythm to it. What is it about this that makes it so satisfying to not only fake clean, fake messes in a fake world, but also to watch someone fake clean, fake messes in a fake world? Well, today we're gonna find out, using the powers of science, precisely why this game is so amazing at bringing out the inner zen in all of us. And believe me when I tell you that the reasons why Powerwash Simulator is capable of hacking your brain to give you that sense of perfectly pulling off a piece of masking tape from a wall after you've gotten done painting it are truly fascinating, truly complex, and truly satisfying. Thankfully, I don't have to give a lore breakdown for this game, even though, bizarrely, there is lore for the game. Matt did a whole video on it, although it does seem a little silly to make lore for a game that involves power washing grime off of cars and dirt bikes. I was actually a little glad that they did, because when I got to the second job, the back garden, I was like, who blew up several bombs in this garden? Why is it so nasty? But thankfully, none of that stuff is relevant here. We are here to know why this is a game any of us are playing at all, or why Markiplier has done 7 videos on this game, or why any of us are actually watching them. So let's start with the easiest to explain, why we like playing this game, which we can explain with one word: flow. Flow is a surprisingly simple idea to understand. Flow is something really specific in neuroscience and psychology, and it's usually used combined with the word state, as in, he's in a flow state, or I'm in a state of flow. But to make it even easier to understand, it's exactly the same thing as being in the zone. It's a mental state that happens when someone is experiencing full creative concentration, and it can only happen when performing a task under extremely specific conditions, which is why it can be so difficult to achieve a state of flow. Flow is something that happens when a task is at the exactly perfect level of difficulty. Time stands still, but also seems to fly by extremely quickly. People in a state of flow sometimes forget to eat or sleep while doing a task. It's made even easier to understand with this flow chart. Get it? Because it's not a flow chart, it's a flow chart. Okay, you know, I should stop? Okay. See, if a task is too difficult and the person performing it isn't skilled enough to accomplish the task, it can put you in a state of anxiety. If, however, the skill level of the person doing the tasks is about middling or medium and the challenge level is low, the person doing it will experience boredom. The sweet spot is right here, where the skill and the difficulty match up right near the peak of what one is capable of doing. Being in a state of flow makes you feel in control of what you're doing while you're also at the same time working almost automatically. Flow requires 5 things in order to reach its optimal state. 1, it needs intrinsic rewards. 2, clear goals and a feeling of progress. 3, clear and immediate feedback. 4, the challenge must match the skill level, which we pointed out up there. And 5, an intense focus on the present moment. And this definition lines up pretty well with what you're doing with Powerwash Simulator. It's not a particularly difficult game. Like, I think pretty much anybody who understands how to use a mouse and keyboard can play it pretty well, but it does have a bunch of random little nooks and crannies that grime and dirt can hide in that require an intense focus to locate. While it may be difficult to argue that a game is intrinsically rewarding, cleaning a bunch of dirt off of stuff is, you know, a real, tangible thing that we can understand, and we'll get more into that in a bit. There's definitely a sense of immediate feedback. Grime and feculence immediately peels off of surfaces as you start blasting them with your sprayer, and there's a real clear sense of progress as things that were once dirty become clean again. And and you get to tick off little check marks. But this really only feels like half of the story for what makes Powerwash Simulator so satisfying, right? It certainly doesn't explain, at least not fully, why a lot of people get a ton of enjoyment just from watching other people play this game. So let's rewind to some of the key features above: intrinsic reward, a sense of progress, and immediate feedback. While progressing through a task and accomplishing goals, your brain releases dopamine into your body, making it a key component of what's called reward-motivated behavior. Your brain, every time you clean that wall or blast all the schmutz off a window and leave it perfectly sparkly, is infusing your body with dopamine, which makes you feel good, which leads you to seek out that reward over and over again. This is a key component in classical and operational conditioning, but it plays a clear role here, where each of these little tasks that show easily trackable progress and require some focus to complete but aren't utterly taxing, they're literally training you to keep going. Each cleaned thing is a little shot of dopamine to your brain, making you feel excellent for accomplishing your fake task. But again, we're only touching on half of the equation here, aren't we? So all of this probably makes sense to you. By doing an easy to understand task that requires just the right amount of focus to accomplish, you enter a state of flow, and through clear and measurable progress, your brain is rewarding you for that behavior by giving you dopamine. That's what makes playing the game so satisfying, because you are the one doing it. But why do we like watching people play it? And why does it give us a similar sense of satisfaction? Well, in order to understand that, we're going to have to talk a little bit more about how Powerwash Simulator hacks your brain even when your hands are far, far away from the controller. And we can start unraveling this mystery by exploring one simple biological feature hiding out in your actual brain right now: mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are, aside from being a major feature in the video game Prey, a neuron. A neuron is a nerve cell. They look like this, little weird alien tree things, but these little alien trees are really important because they form the foundation of our entire everything. They are the cells that make our brains, our nerves that send signals to our heart and other organs to do their job, our lungs to breathe. They tell your muscles to move. They transmit signals from your eyes and ears to your brain for translation. They are both highly specialized and highly versatile little things. Mirror neurons, however, exist only in the brain, and they fire only under specific circumstances. Specifically, wow, that's a lot of specifics. They light up whenever you watch someone else do something. Mirror neurons hang out primarily in the premotor cortex, this chunk of brain right here, and they're not unique to humans. Tons of primate species have them, and they've actually been found in animals like birds. Essentially, they are our neurons that handle imitation, learning, empathy, mimicry, and honestly, thousands of things we probably don't even have names for yet, but they do something interesting when we watch things like Powerwash Simulator and its coming sequel, Masking Tape Remover Simulator. You can have that one for free, Future Lab, played by someone else. Our mirror neurons watching these videos can start firing as though we were the ones completing these tasks, giving us the same rewards as the person playing, although admittedly at a diminished capacity. Meaning, just watching Markiplier play this game and clean the dreck off of playground equipment is giving you a little burst of dopamine as he completes each task. But it gets even weirder than this. In the 2016 paper, Visual Pleasure and Gifts Don't At Me, Anna McCarthy describes why satisfying gifs of cakes being iced or pottery being formed gives us some innate form of satisfaction, why it fires our mirror neurons and gives us that jolt of dopamine in spite of us not doing anything at all. Productivity. productivity. You see, most of everything nowadays is done on a screen. Entertainment is on a screen, work is on a screen, school is on a screen. In fact, the virus who shall not be named that created a global situation that shall not be named probably put humans more on their screens than we ever were before. And it's this life on our screens, coupled with our culture's, how to put this, dependence, fixation with, idealization of the idea of being productive or accomplishing something, or in more basic terms, doing work, has instilled us with a heightened value for accomplishment. To make something, to produce something, whether it's schoolwork or work, is something most modern cultures value tremendously highly and have for quite a long time. What's even more interesting is that the people who are likely to even be watching these videos to begin with are gonna be people who are on screens constantly for work because, well, that's where they are when they're avoiding work or taking a break. And it's this idea, coupled with our basic biology, that makes playing these games and watching them be played tremendously rewarding. Watching a video is not work. It's not producing anything. It's purely entertainment. In fact, they're often a break from or a distraction from work. But because we are on our screens all the time for work, seeing something get accomplished on them feels like work. We get the feeling of working without actually working, which, remember, work, productivity, is accomplishing something, meaning watching tasks get accomplished feels like accomplishing a task, which floods our brains with dopamine saying, "Good boy, you cleaned the entire dirt bike." I am a good boy. But we're not done yet, because there's one more angle we haven't looked at: aesthetics. Yeah, a lot of things we find satisfying to watch are some form of labor being done, which in turn lights up our mirror neurons, satisfies our need for order and productivity, and induces in us a state of what I'm gonna call a sympathetic flow. But a lot of things we find satisfying to do or watch have nothing to do with labor at all. They just look nice. Professor Craig Richard describes the pleased feeling we get from shapes and textures, i.e. sharp lines, clear angles, and clean, shiny surfaces presented in Powerwash Simulator as you effectively paint the world clean. He describes it as observation-mediated ASMR. He says, what many of these videos have in common is that they feature people doing something skilled with their hands. It is appealing to our younger brain because we're hardwired to be entranced by hand movements. We evolved to learn fine motor skills by watching what someone else is doing with their hands, because the benefit of that is you just might learn something. ASMR, or Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, is a tingling, pleasurable sensation that some people experience while either touching objects or hearing certain sounds. The exact mechanism behind it isn't super clear, but it also involves dopamine being released when people experience specific stimuli. Think of it as like the polar opposite of most people's reactions to nails on a chalkboard. Richard says that while it may not be exactly the same as auditory ASMR, watching people accomplish skilled labor injects us with the same little micro doses of dopamine that people get from the tingling sensations folk experience by listening to ASMR videos. And you can see how this very idea ties into everything we talked about before. By playing Powerwash Simulator, you're engaging in an activity that has an intrinsic reward, that's cleaning, and gives clear and immediate feedback. Power washing is easy to grasp and requires a degree of hyperfocus on the present moment. All of these things combined together with the clear goals and a feeling of progress from accomplishing small task after small task activates your brain's reward system and floods it with dopamine, which makes you feel amazing. By watching other people play, your mirror neurons activate, which in turn makes you feel like you are accomplishing the same task just by watching it, and it puts you in a state of sympathetic flow. Because of our culture's reverence of accomplishment and productivity, even though you're not actually working on anything, because it's happening on a screen where a good chunk of modern human labor and education is taking place, it makes us feel like we are accomplishing something even during our our downtime, which also floods our brains with dopamine. And finally, the visually pleasing nature of the task at hand, the clean lines, the shiny surfaces, and the nice sounds the sprayer makes could be producing an autonomous sensory meridian response in people susceptible to that sort of thing, further increasing the flood of dopamine your brain undergoes while playing and or watching. So, turns out that Powerwash Simulator is a lot more powerful than it first appears. That is pretty neat. And I'm 100% serious about Masking Tape Remover Simulator Future Lab. I will play that game. Please make it. Oh, and a small shout out to thesaurus.com for making it possible for me to say dirt 7 times in this video. Feculence was an amazing contribution, I think. Sincerely, Austin. Speaking of flow, I experienced a lot of flow while recording this video and struggling to say mirror neurons. Thank you so much. I want to throw out a shout out to my patrons who have made keeping this show going extremely possible, and I want to give a personal shout out to Juan Santamaria, Riley Huber, Mars the Man, MadLad616, John Rozick, Greyhawk, Mads Jurgensen, Miss Kendra, Ronald Coleman, Alan Hagers, Emma Sims, Francis Gagnon, Royal Gaming 16, Adadam TP, Dan Robb, Nicholas Spillinger, Marissa Resnick, Nick Patterson, and Loretta Mazer for contributing at the super high levels, and I will see you another time. That's the second time I've done a Markiplier thing. It felt relevant here.